Okay, hi everyone. This is going to be the problems here for chapter 9 we're doing, right, with inventory. So we're looking at additional inventory issues. Some of these questions are harder, some are easier. I'm going to be doing a little bit of Excel work here in the sense just like simple functions. So if you're watching, please feel free to pause, watch slower, rewatch. I'll try my best to kind of go slow and then I'll show you the sort of solutions as we go along, but let's get started here. Okay, so we have a company that has 3 products and it's ending inventory 1, 2, and 3. They give us some information, cost, selling price, selling cost. They want to know what should we value these if we use the lower of cost or net realizable value. Okay, so what we're comparing here is really essentially cost with NRV, where NRV is going to equal our sales price minus any costs, right? Selling costs. So in this way, right, if we want to look at, right, we have our costs, that's great, but we got to figure out our NRV, right? So it's really going to be this guy right here, the 40 minus the 6, the 120 minus the 40, the 70 minus the 10, right? The selling price minus the selling cost. So we're looking at 34. What is that? 80. And then 60. Okay. Now what we do is we have the cost, we have the NRV, we just pick the lower of the two, right? 20 is lower than 34. 90 versus 80, 80 is lower. 50 versus 60, 50 is lower, right? There we go, right? That's how we would do it. If we had to write it down, right, we would have a journal entry for the write down. Okay, next up, we have 5 products, A, B, C, D, E. They are telling us here costs to sell, right? So selling costs are going to equal 10% of the selling price, and shipping costs, another selling expense, equal 5% of cost. So we got to read that carefully because one is referencing the selling price as a percentage, and one is representing another expense based on cost. Okay, so they want to know here what should each of the products be valued at when using lower of costs or NRV. We have the cost, but we got to figure out the NRV, right? So let's start here with trying to figure out the selling expenses, right? These guys right here. So I'm just going to put this as a 1 just to kind of give us like step 1, right? We have one of our expenses is referencing 10% of the sales price, right? So we have our sales price here of 60, 100, 80, 130, and 30, okay? 10% of that, right? This is going to kind of be expense 1. So we'll just do the 60 times 10%, and then we can carry this guy down, right? And we'll make that red to show, hey, that's going to be expense 1. Now let's do expense 2, right? Expense 2 is 5% of costs are shipping, right? So we got to figure out cost. So what it's 40, 80, 40, 100, 20, right? Here it's based off 5%, right? So we'll do 40 times 5%, carry that down, right? That's going to be expense 2. Okay. Then what we have to do is, right, step 3 is we're going to have to figure out the NRV, right? So the NRV is going to be the sales price. Oops, right, this guy up here can carry those down. minus expense 1, right? We carry those down, minus expense 2, we carry those down, right? That will give us our NRV, right? In other words, if we do the selling price minus expense 1 minus expense 2, there we go, right? That little formula right there is just this guy up here, right? We can carry that down, okay? Then what we do for 4, right? Step 4 is we're going to compare our cost, right? So we have that over here, cost. I don't want all of those bold, just that guy. With the NRV, right? That's great. And then we're doing the lower of cost for NRV. All right, so what we can do here is just equal min, right? Minimum, hit tab, both those guys, right? 40. Carry that down. Now there we go, right? So the lower of cost or NRV for item A, right? We're going to put that on the books at 40. For B, 80. C, 40. D, 100. E, 20. Right? So nothing too big there. Just a little bit of Excel on it. All right, let's move to exercise 9.5. Right? They're kind of giving us another situation here. Looks like they have 5 products, A, B, C, D, and E. They're going to have 2 expenses here, selling expenses. 1, 10% of sales price. 2, 5% of cost. Normal profit is 30%. Okay. They're saying, hey, if they use lower of cost or market, how would we value this inventory, right? So in this case with LCM, right, lower of cost or market, we're really picking the lower of cost versus what you do is you lay out essentially the ceiling, right, which is going to be your NRV. You have replacement cost. If you were to like go buy this on the open market, that's different from cost. And then you have the floor, which is your NRV minus the profit margin on that. Okay, and what you do here is essentially you figure these out, 1, 2, and 3. You list them out, and then you pick the middle value of it, right? Afterwards, what you do is you compare the cost with the middle, and whatever the smaller is, that's what you're going to value it at, okay? So with this, again, we have some math we have to do, right? So I'm going to just actually copy this over, and then I can show you what I did on it. So let me kind of get this over here, right? So we have our selling price, right here, 60 bucks, just carried it down. The first thing we got to do is find the expenses for NRV, right? Because NRV is selling price minus cost. So expense 1 is 10% of the selling price. Expense 2 is 5% of the cost, right? So this is kind of like step 1, find expense 1. Step 2, find expense 2. Okay? Just kind of shortcutting it to make the video a little bit simpler, similar to what we did before. Then what we do is, right, if this copies over correctly. Oh, nope. This is where you got to be careful. This kind of stuff happens in practice when you try to calculate things. But let me just copy the whole thing over, and then I'll show you what's going on here with it. it looks more intimidating than it is. Don't worry here, right? So we have step 1, selling price. Step 2, right, figure out expense 2. Then what we do is we take the selling price, right from up here. They give us this information, 60, 81, right? We back out expense 1. We back out expense 2, right? You can carry those numbers down. We do a little formula, right? Our selling price minus expense 1 minus expense 2. That gets us our NRV, right? So it's like what we're really doing here is we're trying to map these three things out, right? There we found our NRV, okay? Next thing we're going to try to find here is, because we're going to plug all these numbers in, this guy right here, right? So that is going to be right here. How do we do that? Okay, so we're going to start with our NRV, right? You can just carry that number down, right? And then what we do is essentially we say, okay, we have our selling price, right? That comes from up here, 60, 100, 80, 130, right? We know that there is a 30% profit margin on that, right? So we're going to do 60 times 30 equals, in that case, 18. So if we were to take, right, the net realizable value minus the profit per unit, right, we're looking at 34. You just carry it down, a little formula there. Okay, so that's how we get the green guy. This is all lockstep. It's building off of each other, right? So it's like step 3, then we do step 4. It looks big, but it's really like every time I did this, all I did was drag stuff down, right? I really just do one line item. If you do the math right, then you drag it down. It's not that hard, okay? Then what we got to do is, right, they give us the replacement cost, right? So we can put, just a little, what do we want to make this? Yellow, right? That's this guy right here. Okay, so now we have all our pieces of the puzzle. We know our cost, check. We know our replacement cost, check. We know our NRV, check. And then we know our NRV minus the profit per unit, check. We have all our pieces. Now what we got to do is we got to list these three things out and pick the middle value. Okay, so here we go down here, right? We have our replacement cost that we snagged from above. We have our NRV, and then we have our NRV minus our profit per unit. I just link these things right down, right? It's like not that hard to link these if you just do, right, like, this I came from the chart, but this NRV is linked, right? This guy right here, there was nowhere to link it from. I just grabbed it from up there, right? So all I did was just do 52. Right, and carried it down. Not hard, did it for all of those. Now, right, we have 1, 2, and 3. We gotta pick the middle of those. How can we do that? Right, well, we can use a formula. Right, if you look up here, median, middle, right, what I'm doing is, can you please tell me equal, medium, tab, the middle value of 35, 52, and 34. Bam, 35, right? 34, 35, 52, if we were to rank them, that's the middle value. Carry that formula down. There we go. Okay, now we're at a point we have to compare our cost with the middle value, right? Lower of cost versus middle value. All I did here is another formula. Please tell me the minimum, the smallest amount between cost and middle of 1, 2, 3. Drag it down. There we go. Okay, so essentially what we're going to do here is, right, our ending inventory for A is going to be at 35. For B, it's going to be 70, 40, 73, and 20. Okay, so I'm going to pull this over just so you can see it. If you want to pause, right, and look at, maybe a different presentation of it, that's great. There you go. But it's essentially, I did this on the side and I'm representing it for you. Okay. All right, let's do exercise 9.9. All right, so they're telling us on November 21st, a fire caused severe damage to the inventory, right? We estimate that, hey, the remaining inventory that was damaged, we can sell that for 12 grand, right? So that's going to be kind of like a salvage value almost. And then they give us the following information, right? Our inventory at the beginning of November, our purchases during November up until the fire, and then our sales from the beginning of November up to the fire. Hey, they tell us that, hey, our gross profit ratio is 35% of net sales. What they want to say here is, can you please calculate the estimated loss on the inventory from the fire using the gross profit method, right? So this is going to deal with an estimate, right? We're going to use an estimate here. So essentially, right, if we were to build this out, right, we're going to have our beginning inventory at 100,000, right? We're going to have our net purchase of 140,000, right? That's going to give us a goods available for sale of, it should be a plus sign there, sorry, 240,000, okay? Then, right, what it says here is we have our net sales, right over here of 220. On those sales, right, we have an estimated gross profit margin of 35%. Right, so what we'll do is we will take the 220 times 0.35%, right? That's 77,000. Accordingly, right, if we want to get our cost of the goods we sold, right, we will take the 220, what we sold it for, back out the profit portion, right? 143 must be our cost. Right, so we take the like what we're doing here is we're taking the sales price, backing out the profit, right, what we made on it, and what the leftover is, right, that's going to be our cost of it, of what we sold. So that's our estimated cost of goods sold, right? It's an estimate because the inventory was damaged, there was a fire. We're basing this off that 35% gross profit amount there. Okay, so our goods available for sale are 240. Our estimated cost of goods sold is 143, right? Accordingly, our estimated ending inventory is going to be 97,000, okay? On top of that, right, if that's our estimated ending inventory, right, we know from there that essentially we could sell the damaged stuff, right? So the value of damaged goods, right, $12,000. They give us that right up there, right? Essentially what's going on here is, right, we had inventory, like when we did an estimate of 97,000, the best we can sell it for is 12, right? That means we're going to have an estimated loss of $85,000, right? So that's the idea there. With that, I'll bring the answer over here if you want to see kind of the key for it if you want to pause and look at that. But that's how we would do that problem. All right, this one gonna be some items here. Okay, so we have a business. It looks like they use the retail inventory method, right? So again, this is dealing with an estimate here. They give us the following information for October, right? They're telling us cost, and then they're giving us information about retail, right? They want to know, can you please, using the retail method, specifically average cost under the retail method, tell us ending inventory and cost of goods sold, under the cost amount, right? So what we have to do here is essentially, right, we're going to have our cost column and we're going to have our retail column. We'll start with our beginning inventory, right? It's going to be 35,000 for cost, 50,000 for retail, just grabbing the information over there. Then we're going to have to add some things to that, right? The net purchases, the net markups, and we're going to back out any markdowns, right? So kind of have to be careful where you drag this stuff over on it, right? So the net purchases under costs are 19,120. Under retail are 31,600. With regard to the markups and markdowns, this only is going to affect the retail column over here, right? You're not going to put anything in cost there for it, okay? And I'm just going to put -800 because it's a markdown, right? So if we were to just kind of temporarily sum these guys, right? So beginning plus that, we're looking at 54,2. Beginning plus those guys, we back out. I mean, I have a plus symbol there, but it's really a negative because it's a negative, right? We're looking at 82,000. I'm going to put in here, cost to retail, the percentage. We'll come back to that because I want to do that separately. And one of the things we got to back out from this is going to be less net sales, right? So here, kind of one of the puzzle pieces we haven't used yet. I'm just going to put that in as a negative. Okay, so if we have, this is going to be our goods available for sale, right? If we're at 82 and we sold 32, right? $50,000 is going to be our estimated ending inventory at retail. Okay. So first thing we got to do here is, right, we're just kind of, so far all we've done is plug things in, right? Now we've done kind of step one, right? We've worked our way down to estimated ending inventory at retail. Now we're going to do step two, right? We're going to take essentially, because we're using the average cost here, the cost of 54,200 divided by 82,000, right? If we were to put percentage on that, right, we're looking at 66%, right? So that's step two, we got to get the 66%. Now, what we do, right, we're going to figure out estimated, don't want to do that, ending inventory at cost, right? This guy right here. And essentially what we're going to do is phone a friend, right? We're going to say, and I'll show you the answer. You can see it in the answer key, but we're going to take the $50,000 retail times the 66%, right? We're looking at 33,000, right? So it's just a little formula there. Accordingly, right, if we know, right, so that's step 3, right, we got to use 50 in the percentage. We're kind of combining step 1 and step 2. Then we can do step 4, right, which is going to be like, okay, if we know our goods available for sale under cost and we know our ending inventory at cost, then we can do our estimated cost of goods sold at cost. Right, so it's going to be the 54 minus the 33. We're looking at 21.22. Okay, so what did we do there? Essentially, we figure out ending inventory at retail, figure out the percentage, multiply the two. 33, we got 54 minus 33. We're looking at 21.120 there. Okay. Next up here, right? And I'll show you the answers at the end. I'm giving you the answers here, but sometimes it's nice to see them. Next up, they're telling us, okay, you're still using the retail method. Here's some information, but you're going to be using the conventional retail method, right? So what this is going to involve is, right, we're going to have a stop sign whenever we build this out. In other words, we're going to only include the markdowns after that stop sign. So it's kind of like we're going to have a subtotal, then deal with the markdowns, another subtotal. Okay, so again, let's kind of build this out. I'm just going to copy this as a starting point. It's not going to be exactly the same, right? We're going to have beginning inventory. Let me delete some of these here. So again, I'm just grabbing the numbers over here at the left. 190 at retail, it's 280. We then have purchases in this case of, let's see, 600,000 at cost, 840 at retail, and then we have net markups of, we're going to use this, where's the number at over there? 20,000. Okay. And again, that's only the markups, the markdowns, that only deals with retail, right? Like think when you're going to a store and it's like, we have markdowns on everything, right? That's a retail thing. Okay, so what we're going to do now is, right, and then you may say, well, what about that markdown? Don't worry, we're going to come to it, but we're not using it right now. We got to have that stop sign, right? So the stop sign here essentially is going to be the 280 plus the 840 plus the 20, right? We're looking at 1.40. And if we were to just sum the cost, right, we're looking at 790 there. But I got to add something to this. I missed an item here. Not a big deal. Purchases, I forgot the freight in, right? So here, the freight in, the $8,000. So this is, again, kind of counterintuitive because if you go back to the PowerPoint, right, freight in is part of cost, but it's not part of retail. Markups are part of retail, but they're not part of cost. So you kind of have to be careful with that here. So we're going to have 190 plus 6, and I got to add that in, 190 plus 600 plus 8, 798, right? So that's going to be essentially where we start with our stop sign, right? And what we will do here is we will figure out our cost to retail percentage based on that stop sign. In other words, we haven't done any markdowns yet. So it'll be a 798 over the 114, right? If we were to put that in a percentage, right, we're looking at 70%, okay? We'll come back to that. Right now, we're gonna have less, right? Now we deal with those markdowns, right? Again, only gonna hit the retail side here, 4,000 bucks. Okay, so we'll do the 1.1 in the 4, right? We're looking at 1.1136, and we can carry down that 798. We haven't touched that yet. Okay. You said there's a stop sign, right? You don't build it out right up here, right? We included the markdowns. It was simple. Everything was up there. Down here, it's a little bit complicated. There's a stop sign in between. Okay. Continuing with that kind of setup, right? So this guy right here is going to be our goods available for sale. We got there the same way, the same end result, but there was a stop sign in between. Okay. Then once we have that goods available for sale, right, we can back out, let me move that over there, less our net sales, right? Again, so they're giving us that information over here, 800,000, right? That's at retail in that retail column. So if we take our goods available for sale and we back out the net sales, right, that's going to be our estimated ending inventory at retail. Okay. Now what we got to do, right? So that was kind of like step one, right? Step one is similarly, we got to build it down. We go down to estimated ending inventory at retail. There's the stop sign in between. You got to break it out specifically. Step two would be, right, as kind of part of that, we're going to break out the percentage. So it's kind of where do you draw the line here where one meets into two, but you can think of it step one, we got to get estimated ending inventory. Step two, we got to get the percentage based on the number here pre-stop sign, right, for it. Okay. Next, what we're going to do is, right, we're going to figure out, right, because we know our ending inventory at retail, we can figure out our estimated ending inventory at cost, right? We're populating this column, right? And essentially what we're going to do is, right, we're going to take step one times step two, right, 235, okay? Well, if we know our goods available for sale, right, at cost are 798, right there. We know our estimated ending inventory at cost is 235. Then we can figure out our estimated cost of goods sold at cost, which will be the 798 minus the 235, right? You're looking at 562, 800 there. Okay, so that would be kind of step three and then step four. So what did we do? We listed it out. We worked our way down. We landed at 336. We used a stop sign in between, right? We excluded the markdowns, right? They come after the stop sign, but the markups are part of it. That gives us a percentage, right? We then take the 336 times the percentage there, that gives us 235. Then we take the 798 minus the 235, that gives us the 562, okay? So here's kind of, the answer key here for the first problem. If you want to pause it right? How we did the first problem. If you're looking at that math, here's the answer key for the second problem. If you want to look at that, if you want to pause it, okay? All right, one more problem to go here, right? So they're giving us some information. They're saying the company uses the periodic inventory system and the retail inventory method. Specifically, they're using the retail inventory method with LIFO. Assume stable retail prices. Can you please figure out ending inventory and cost of goods sold? Okay, so we're going to have, again, our cost column. We're going to have our retail column, right? We can start here with our beginning inventory, right? Just snagging the numbers from over there. 160, retail, 280. All right, then we're going to add some things to it, right? We're going to add the net purchases. We're going to add the net markups. And we're going to subtract the net markdowns. We don't got to do the stop sign here, right? The stop sign is only for the conventional method. Again, some of these things, right, the purchases we can grab 607, 760, 840 over there. We're grabbing it. We know the markups and markdowns only hit the retail side of things, 20,000. This one's a markdown, so we'll put it at 4,000. So with that, right, if we were to just kind of sum this, right, we're at 1.136 and 767. But here's the deal, right? We have to do kind of two columns here for this because it's LIFO, right? So we have to have two goods available for sale. So we're going to have goods available for sale excluding beginning inventory and goods available for sale including beginning inventory. Right, so this guy right here, including beginning inventory, right, it's the whole shooting match. It's what we would normally think of for goods available for sale. But if we were to exclude beginning inventory, right, it would be everything but beginning inventory, right? It's like sitting out here, it's sad, right? It's not happy. You're excluding me from this. Right, so we're looking at 607, 760 there, and here 856, okay, with it. Now, what we gotta do here is, right, we're gonna continue with building this out, right? We're gonna have a cost to retail percentage, right, that we're gonna use. We'll come back to that. And then we gotta back out less our net sales, right? And that's telling us over here 800,000, right? So we can figure out, right, our estimated ending inventory at retail, right? In other words, we would take the goods available for sale, we'd back out the net sales, right? We're looking at 336. Okay, step one, figure out the estimated ending in retail. We just worked our way down with it. No stop signs here, but we do kind of have a little bit of a double goods for sale calculation, right? So it's like 2 times we got to figure out the goods available for sale. Okay. Now what we do is we got to figure out our cost to retail percentage on it. So in this case, right, if we are just trying to figure out for the layer, right, the layer would be like the additional stuff, right? That would be like the new layer, the new purchases, right? It's going to be, and that's why we take these two numbers right here. It's excluding that beginning inventory. It's just the layer, right? So it'll be 607, 760, and then 856, right? And if we were to put that as a percentage, right, you're looking at 71%. Okay, so step 2 is figure out the percentage based off that guy for the layer. Okay, 71%. Now, what we do, right, we're going to build this out a little bit further down here, right? We will have, and I'm trying to mirror like sort of the solution, how they present this in the PowerPoint. We will have a retail column down here, and we will have a cost column down here. We can have beginning inventory. All right, we're going to have the current layer, and we're going to have the total, right? So the beginning inventory here is at retail is 280, right? The current layer, right? We can come to this. We'll come to it. Let's figure out this one here. The cost is 160. Okay. Let's see here. The total. Let me get some lines on this guy. Right. So cost, we're going. Or I'm sorry, retail here. The total, right? We calculated 336. Okay. So if we were then to have this, right? If we were to kind of look at it, it would be, hey, the difference between the 336 and the 280, right, is $56,000. In other words, what happened here is we started at 280, we ended at 360, right? For the period, right, our layer, we went up by 56 for the layer on that, okay? Then what we do is, right, because that's the layer, right, we have to base it off of this percentage right here, right? Because this is just focusing on the layer. That's the percentage based on the layer. Hey, here's the current layer. We got to keep this all apples to apples. Okay, so this is going to equal 71% on there, and then we can cross multiply. 56 times 71%, we're looking at 39,760. We'll add those two together, 199,760, right? What that then does is, right, that will end up being the 199,760, essentially our estimated ending inventory at cost, right? It now becomes part of kind of this column right here, right? Well, if our goods available for sale in this case are going to be 767, we back out the 199, right? We're looking at 568 there for our cost of goods sold at cost. And again, these are based on estimates. All right, so I can put that, I guess, over here, estimated cost of goods sold on there. Okay, so a little bit tricky on this last one. Let me show you the answer if you want to see it here. Right, so you can pause it if you want to look at that, kind of how they are doing that. So I kind of have the steps, right? So like step 1, step 2, 3, 4, 5. So with that, I'm going to end the video here.